What's up guys, Ben here, bringing you another video today. So I did a video this morning about OpTic Gaming and their roster and all the stuff that we heard in the middle of the week. And we got to make a video about what happened this afternoon, what it means for OpTic, their players, what it means for some of the other teams that these players were linked to, and where we all go from there. So let's dive in and talk about it. All right, so as y'all know, there were rumors over the last couple of days that Dashy and Illy were on their way out. Supposedly Hydra was joining the team, Attach, Cammy, yada, yada, yada. And then suddenly later this afternoon, out of nowhere, we got hit with this tweet. And the first reaction from many people on the timeline was like, oh man, like these guys trolled everyone. Like they were just trolling about roster changes, yada, yada, yada. I obviously tweeted this out. I got a lot of responses ratioing me. I did have a lot of people like you see Joe DeLuca agreeing with me. Based on my knowledge of the situation, we had Nameless also come on and confirm, as well as Bruce himself, aka Dashy. I think what happened here with OpTic is they thought about the potential of a Scump, Shotzi, Hydra, Attach / Cammy team. They thought about that versus their squad this year. And they thought to themselves, should we really make a change? Is this really what we wanted to do? And I think at some level they decided maybe we should run it back. And that's what happened. And I think that's how we ended up where we're at this afternoon, where the team that was there last season, that one major one, and obviously, you know, they dealt with Indy's issues and all that, are now back together. And I think for OpTic, it's not a bad decision, in my personal opinion. I like some of the ideas that they had with these potential moves, but this roster is really clear in which it can go. The ceiling is there for this team to be a championship contender, to win events. They did it once last year. They got a pretty good chance placing. Not the one they wanted, but they placed pretty well. Yes, there are some issues. They had some pacing issues at the end of the season. They started to suck at control at the end of the season. Illy had obviously injury issues. I like to run it back. I still think you got to get a good sub for this team because you don't know about this inner situation long term. So if I'm OpTic, cool, you're keeping the four together, but we need to find someone who's a sub who can come in if Illy does have those issues reoccur again. I think the big question now is, what does this mean for the other rosters on the team? Because we were hearing about, post all of the news coming out about Hydra, Attach, and Cammy, about then Illy and Dashy getting linked to other teams out there. And then this tweet hit the timeline a little bit earlier in the day before the OpTic news about Arcitys. And in addition, as you see from this thread on Reddit, on his stream earlier today, about the same time as the Alec tweet, this, if my math is correct, I'm recording this around like 8 p.m. East Coast time, so it's around 4 o'clock. This is before the OpTic tweet went up. Zuma said there was a possibility that Shotzi could go on to FaZe, but now it's confirmed they're staying on OpTic. My reading of this is this, from a timeline perspective, and it leads credence to the fact that I think like that this OpTic move was definitely not a troll. Like at some level, FaZe was thinking about a change. He might still be thinking about a change. They hit up Shotzi, said, yo, let's hop on, let's team. I mean, if you think about it on paper, yo, like a Celium, Simp, a BZ, Shotzi roster is kind of disgusting. Shotzi thought about it, went back to OpTic, probably used that as leverage, made the roster change, and then all of a sudden the roster change came back. I think that's based on everything I'm seeing right now, my sense of timing on these things, I think that's kind of what happened here. Let's get back to the Alec thing though. We're recording this video about a little bit less than 6 hours after he posted this tweet. He hasn't taken it down yet. So I wonder what's going on. Alec is a troll at times, don't get me wrong, but I feel like if this wasn't happening, he probably would have deleted this tweet by now. If they had walked it back, he would have deleted this tweet by now. So it makes the FaZe situation very interesting. You know, if you don't know the history of some of these players, they used to, this team, a combo of these players between Simp and Abizi and Celium and Dash used to play a lot of tournaments together. They'd win a lot of tournaments. We're talking about like not just random online S&D. Like they would play the big multi-$1,000 primes on UMGs and GBs, and they would beat like full pro teams. So these guys were discussing together, and a lot thought, well, when these guys would come up in the league and they would team together, I can confirm that at some point in the Modern Warfare and Cold War seasons, you know, when Dashy's situation on OGLA was a little bit unstable, he definitely tried to see what was going on in the FaZe situation. So I see where like the world, right? Reddit was sort of, the internet, Twitter was sort of thinking, you know, maybe we see FaZe Dashy. But it's interesting to me that the Alec tweet is still up. So if they are making a change, clearly it's not Dashy and Shotzi now. Who else could it be? I would think you're not going to pick up another AR player, so they would go down more of what we were thinking that OpTic would do, where someone's going to move to a flexing and pick up a sub player. The only thing though is the only options I can think of are all locked on like teams. So let's see if maybe FaZe is a team that's going to splash a bit of cash and get someone that is not a free agent and buy them out. This is one to watch over the next 24 hours, 48 hours, and see if they're going to stick it with Alec or if they're actually still making a change and what that means for the rest of the league. Now we got to talk a little bit about New York, because I think that's sort of the last piece of this, right? So attaching Cammy, you know, clearly their teams didn't want them. They're going to find a situation elsewhere right now. They're not going to OpTic, whether it's Minnesota, Boston, New York, LAG. But let's talk a little bit about New York. Let's talk about Hydra, because his situation is very unique now. There was all the commotion around him in New York. New York makes some changes at the beginning of the week on the player options sort of deadline, and you think, okay, like they're clearing sort of the field for Hydra to make the team he wants. They're going to get Skies. And then the OpTic news hits and you're like, wow, New York got screwed because they were basically led to believe that he was going to sign there, and then an OpTic offer came in. But now the OpTic offer is not there. So what are you doing if you're Hydra in New York? I have Matt Lucero's tweet up. If you guys don't know who Matt Lucero is, he's a creative director over at NYSL. Matt's actually a pretty cool guy if you get to know him, but I think his tweet here an hour ago kind of sums it up. I don't know if he's necessarily talking about the Hydra situation, but for the sake of this video, let's assume he is. It's definitely been a wild ride for people in New York. So you gotta think the team for New York now is probably Hydra, if he signs, Guys, because it seems like him and Hydra are best buds apparently. KiSMET, who's still on the roster. That leaves a flex spot open if you assume that Hydra and Kiz are the subs. Obviously, I can see a role where maybe they pick up a sub player and they do this whole like sub by committee thing. But let's assume based on roles this year, they're picking up a flex player. You would think Paul X would be that flex player, but it seems like he's not in the plans of the team. So who knows now who that player is going to be? Could it be Attach? Could it be Priesta? Could it be Cammy? I honestly don't know. The New York situation is very interesting to me now. With Hydra back in play, I think we'll get some clarity here probably in the next 24 to 48 as well. As we get to the weekend, I think before we get to the sort of first part of where teams can sign on Monday, I feel like we'll start to get formed teams for the most part now that some of the dominoes are starting to fall kind of by the end of the week, and then people will start ironing out contract stuff and going from there. I think the final thing is some of the other teams out there. Like I had heard legit full teams with Dashi and Illy on them as rumors today, but clearly none of those are happening now. So I wonder if those teams are still going to happen. And they were some interesting teams, guys, like teams that I did not expect. But all of those teams now, we're talking about like a Toronto, Minnesota, LAG, Florida, like all of their plans now have to revert back half a day because all of your planning of Dashi and Illy being pieces on the field, well, they're off now. And so you got to rethink your lineup as you get into the weekend. Get ready to commit towards next week towards signing some of these guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Do you think that OpTic made the right decision here by sticking with their team? Do you think they should have moved forward with the changes? What do you think FaZe should do? Should they keep Alec? And let me know what you think like teams like New York should do comp-wise. If they're going to re-sign Hydra, like what do you think it should be? I think there's a lot of different topics there to discuss. As always, guys, if you like the video, smash that like button. If you want to subscribe, I would appreciate it. We put out a lot of content on this channel and we'll continue to do so throughout the off season and once the season starts as well. So be on the lookout for that. And as always, guys, we'll see you on the next one.